One question for you is, what part of marketing makes your day?
Should I go first?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what part of marketing makes my day? It is, for now, it's a lot focused around marketing strategy and a little bit even around measurement. Whether the campaigns that we are running, the channels we decided, and the kind of plans that we have, are they working or not? And we, in a way, every quarter we are kind of tweaking our strategy and moving that. So that makes most of my day.
Yeah. Fantastic. Piet?
Yeah, so I'm in a bit of a transition. I think is that at the moment it's much more messaging, positionings, and understanding strategic side of things. But I mean, like, as this roll back to being in startup CMO land, it's like, I mean, 100%, well, almost 100% was focused on really the bottom part of that funnel. You know, it's like, it's what translates into pipeline, and understanding all of the influencers to see as it's like, where do I invest more at the top? Where do we do better conversion, and what strategies are working versus what aren't working? And so it was very, very much focused on making the engine work compared to the messaging and positioning, which is sort of a derivative sometimes of that. But that sort of, for me, that is a sort of daily focus, was just like, is tweak that engine, understand that engine as best as I can.
Fantastic. And when we tweak the engine, when we talk about tweaking the engine or understanding the engine or knowing that, with the AI flavor coming into this aspect, there's so much of AI. A lot of that is on the content side still, but how do you view with these strategic priorities? What do you consider AI readiness in marketing?
Yeah, and actually last 6 months for me have been focused a lot around AI in marketing. And that is because Kantar is private equity backed. So they are quite interested to know where can you find operational efficiencies. And we were anyway working on a very long-term project with Microsoft. So there are it is probably still in the stage of experimentation, but what we started to do and think about is, where can we incorporate agentic AI or agentic workflows that will help us improve a campaign. So I would say that this was a very, let's say, bold approach to think about. We were not very mature in terms of how we were using our MarTech. So for us, it was starting on many levels in a new way. So where can we incorporate that? And by that, the example or the use case that we are trying to get to is something like, if we just say that we want to increase leads by X%, then design the campaign. Not only on content level, but how would it design the campaign? That kind of AI rule we wanted to try to start.
Great input. And that'll lead on to another thought process I have. I think we will bring that up in the next, as we get further, Ashruti. It's a very good segue to the next one. Piet, your thoughts on this one? What do you think?
So you thought your question basically is, where do you see AI intersect essentially with what we do?
Yeah, in your own words, when we talk about marketing and we talk about AI, share your thoughts on what does AI readiness mean from a marketing perspective?
I mean, look, I think AI has made the rounds in a number of cases. I mean, like, there's obviously in some of the platforms like HubSpot and whatever, is like there are some analytical capabilities that are think about things that could be lead scoring based and stuff like that. It makes 6 sense. So intent is another sort of an AI use case that have come into it. I think that and then obviously the content side of things, I've played around with that quite a bit. I think one of the challenges I see when in just applying AI is a lot of these things are black boxes and difficult to assess. But for me, I think, as I said, Mick, everybody is jumping, every vendor is jumping on, we have some AI that'll do some magic. I think the challenge is basically deciphering whether that is truly working, and whether this is implemented correctly within my platforms, within my environment. For me, with some of the biggest challenges that I was sort of leaning on.
Yeah, it's amazing. Uh, and I think that will lead to the next topic in many ways. In my mind, as I thought through this for today, is what are the levers? There are, and I try to put some thoughts, and let me know if if I'm paraphrasing it correctly from your own perspectives, from me as marketing leaders, Ashruti and Piet. I said, I asked myself a question: if we were to assess levels of marketing and readiness levels for what level we are, what are the different buckets that I would assess it in? Data obviously comes up as one of the one of the big term. Um, Tech stack itself, martech stack and its readiness and how well it's implemented. Use case maturity. Ashwati, you brought up a point. Optimizing campaign and campaign success and campaign itself. Talent. Do you have in-house talent to be able to support and manage, and to be able to leverage AI? Governance, data usage, guardrails, executive buy-in, leadership buy-in, and culture. So these were the 7 kind of levers that I put together, and I want to get your thoughts. Where are your top 3 in each of these, in terms of these levers? Which ones would you put as your top 3? And I'll go with you, Ashwati, first. Yeah.
I think, and I'll touch upon what Piet said, right? One of the first, foremost requirement for us is data and data quality. Like slightly beyond marketing, one of the projects that we were experimenting with was go-to-market planning using AI tools. And one of the limitations we had was that we had to feed in 500 different go-to-market plans to get another recommended go-to-market plan where we did not have access to. So there is that. The number one is data, and the quality of data. Number two is probably what you are talking about, leadership buy-in. And for that, I feel like, at least for me, it is more leaning towards, let's try this and see what's the scope of improvement, what do we get, and maybe it's a lot around like coming from the sense of what do we not know about. So keep trying on that respect. In terms of skill set, that's always a challenge, whether it's AI led and non AI led, and maybe with AI it becomes even more difficult. But yeah, skill set will be my third one.
Oh, amazing. Pierre, your thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think I think it's going to be dependent, extremely, or like heavily dependent on where you are in the journey. It's like I can't scale anything in marketing if I don't have the story. Like it says, what am I selling? If I know what I'm selling, then I can go and scale it. I can clean up the message, I can create the content, and I can run a campaign, and I can spend the money. I think that was for me the number one thing was that. I think the second, I mean, I go with what Trudy was saying about data. I think the challenge, and again, this is a sort of a combination of skill set, scale, and things like that. The problem in our stacks is the signals live in multiple places. I've got HubSpot, I've got Salesforce, I've got ZoomInfo, I've got SixSense, I've got Google Analytics, and the data have become like a monster to try and deal with. And so now you sit with, well, the data is all over the place. It's difficult to integrate. I don't have the skills. I don't have the time. We don't have necessarily the tool sets, and things like that. I think that's number two for me. I'd say the third one, I'd probably jump up again with Shruti about the executive buy-in. I think marketing is one of those things that it lives central in the nervous system of go-to-market. So if you think product on the one side, buyer on the other side, I think marketing is pivotal, whether you do PLG, whether you do direct selling, whether you do partner-based indirect selling, it doesn't really make a difference. Is I think marketing is in that middle of that journey. And I think having executive buy-in versus executive destruction, it's like we can't just simply, if a number isn't looking good, we can't just simply come in and say it's like it's just marketing or idiots don't know what they're doing. It's like marketing is very much a product of the environment. There's some product, there's some sales, there's some marketing leadership and all of these kinds of things. But I think a clear understanding and a clear buy-in and executive level support, meaning marketing shouldn't be just the sit in the corner and somebody is saying, is it like new product, go launch? It's like go create website, go create. I think marketing's voice in that sort of strategic level conversation, I think to me is pivotal in the overall success of the organization.
Amazing. Thank you, Piet. That was really, and if I paraphrase it, Piet, my understanding, and Ashruti is also, I think, although we put data, tech stack, and use case as three different levers, they kind of all come together in a way for marketing in the sense that it's pretty much a combination of these three which is necessary in any ways, right? For data to be there, you need to have maturity in your tech stack, and the tech stack has to feed it into something, into some repository, or be able to kind of aggregate it in some form. And clearly, whether it's campaign use case or specifically what are the parameters, where you get into the use case is one dimension of I know you mentioned lead scoring is a use case and all of that, but in a sense that all might fit into campaign effectiveness, broadly speaking.
Yeah, but for me, use case I would define as product market fit, go to market fit, meaning what am I selling to the market, not the internal things like scoring and stuff like that. I mean, that for me is part of data, part of your tech stack, and part of the engines that you operate. But for me, the use case that I was mentioning was more from a we're selling a data security product. Who do we sell it to? Where do we land? As I said,
great point, Pierre. Thank you so much for clarifying. I think it kind of brings me to another question. I've been thinking, and in our last conversation, Pierre, and this, I started, and you have a big context on our background and stuff like that. So I was noodling through audit, or how do you assess readiness, or how do you know there is how do you kickstart your AI readiness project? You have buy-in as one of the key topics. You have the definition of use case, and then now you have data. How would, as a marketing leader, would you kickstart the case, the business case, or anything around it? And could AI readiness audit be that to help you get executive buy-in and get started on what you need, how you need to execute to that? Just a thought. And if so, is there, would you do it in-house or external? Would you use a third party? Would you look for an external vendor or partner to help you with that? What are your thoughts around this?
So if I go first on, so I guess one of the challenges, or this is what we live with in marketing, is that even the marketing tech stack and the way we structure our teams is split across like these various things, right? That you have somebody who's working on campaign design, then content development, execution, or picking the right channels and placements, and then measurement. So I would say that because this is in a way quite disjointed in terms of marketing tech stack and teams, it does make sense to think about like where AI will play a most role and where do we have significant amount of data and quality to be able to implement it. Maybe the lowest hanging fruit there is content development, because each platform and tool has certain capability of developing copywriting content easily, but not across the marketing tech stack.
Perfect. And from an audit perspective, Ashruti, what are your thoughts on audit itself? I mean, how that kind of gives you a game plan. Would you would you, in a way, you have a thought process of what you need to tackle first? Would you want to frame it or build the case around through a kind of a readiness audit, or how you would jump into it with directly in yeah, as
Yeah.
a,
Yes, I would. Yeah, I think I agree that we would, an audit will help. And but the way I've been thinking about it is that what are you aiming for? Let's say,
correct.
are you aiming for a certain efficiency in lead generation or better targeting or something like that? You should have that marketing objective and then go and think about where AI should be implemented and do that kind of audit. Because each organization has slightly different expectations on what they want to achieve in terms of efficiency or growing volumes, etc.
Perfect. I think that's a great point, Ashruti. Piet, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably. I think I make in general. I like the idea of an audit. As I said, I think one of the, but it depends a little bit on timing as well. It's like is are we like it means like seriously when you're new into an organization or make in our case and because as we take a sort of guesstimate and say here's our sort of here's the play that we want to run. There's quite a bit of time quite a bit of time like I said quite frequently that I've been in a situation where I wanted to know whether the numbers that we are looking at, the ICP that we have defined, is that especially with a lot of changes that have taken place in the organization. So I think it says there's a great time and a place in my mind to do something around an audit, which is, I mean, in a way, I sort of using a little bit of a sort of a bullshit checking. We talk about conversion ratios and things like that. Are we truly at that? Do we have the right ICP and is it actually being matched by what we are seeing coming from data, from campaigns, meaning from nurtures and all these different kinds of things. I think it's just, I'll give an example of one of my previous organizations. I mean, we were struggling with just understanding what drives long-term value. And so lots of hypotheses. And nobody said the relationship with enterprise architects, and it turns out that enterprise architects. If you think about ideal company, ideal persona we want to sell to, architects were never featured, and it turns out that had a 7 times bigger influence on lifetime value than anything else. Like I said, and so something, because I said, we had to go into the data and do a project. We had to come in and do that sort of audit, as I said. So when there's sort of a transition in strategy, a transition in, could be the marketing leadership, I think those are great opportunities to think about doing an audit. And as I said, because it's when I use it to kind of say, here are the assumptions of we think we do this, but can we run it through the data, or can we run the data through through some kind of a process and see if it actually matches? And as I said, the frustration with AI embedded is black box. So like I don't know if it what exactly influences. Can I take my data and put it through another algorithm and see if I can marginally come in the same direction? I want to be able to double check. And so in my mind, I mean, these are areas where I have been sort of using audits in the past, or where I constantly sort of think about it as like, how do I double check what's coming out of the engine on that, and basically sort of go in. And this is sort of focused on the data side, meaning it's like that data factory and all of the conversions and everything that goes through it. I always ask myself the question here, are we selling to the right people? Are we performing the right and the best activities, and do we have a handle on what those things are? Because if we build a nurture and it's got 17 different steps in the email nurture, and we launch a new product, and is that the right nurture, or is that nurture actually going? And if it's not working, how fast can we identify there are problems? So I always think about using audits for kind of double checking my homework, double checking whether we are at the right place, and we think we get the certain results. But I want to be able to say it like it's right. Nick, I've been in various companies where people would be coming out and say that like, yep, events are the number one thing for us for pipeline generation. And then you run it through an audit and you look at the data, and it turns out that events are only doing 15% because it has that sort of executive source at the event and they had a chat and therefore we closed the deal. And then their mind is it like it says, oh, yeah, events are doing everything. The truth of it is it's like it says blocking and tackling. Then the basic stuff we do on a day-to-day basis might be actually the thing that generates more. So I kind of see it like it says because data are so disparate. I like that notion of just like let's do an audit. Let's whether it's external vendors or internal doesn't matter. But you wanna kind of go through and double check your assumptions and see if you can verify it again from the data, not just based on my little bias.
It's an excellent point, Piet. I both I think and Ashruti, Piet, two different. I think there are at different levels and different layers. It's the great perspectives coming from you. But maybe Piet, I'll double click on this. How would you assess, with data being such a fundamental component to audit, how would you start, and I do see and do you see data aggregation as a limitation to even get started with it? And an open question in my mind, and I want to also, there's an allied question is how do you see Lakehouse projects itself? Do you see that as a very, very massive, time-consuming effort, or do and that's one dimension to that. But is Lakehouse itself a kind of a linchpin before you can get something started, whether it's AI readiness audit or anything of that kind?
I mean, my personal 2 cents on that would be is it's like I want. I mean, the challenge I see is each of our platforms have a silo or a slice of the data, like
Yes.
and so I think that the challenge for me is it's like I want everything. I want to see everything, and I want to have as much as I can. That's in there, and especially since we live in a world where source like marketing sourced or source pipeline is kind of a very, very tough thing to prove out. So now you want to look at multi-touch across the entire ecosystem, if I can put it that way. So I kind of like the fact that you have the ability to bring it into an independent or like I can say an independent platform where you can aggregate the data. I mean, silly things that you and I have spoken about in the past is that, like, is that you can't get time series analysis out of Salesforce or HubSpot or Marketo. It's like it's just ridiculous. It's like is that the only way to do that is to take it into a third party, or you need to buy yet another module potentially of each of these platforms. So I would say I think is for me the easier, better way is just take it into a third party platform. The one thing I'd say though is that like it cannot. I mean, we are marketers, okay? We get paid to generate pipeline to help sales sell. We do not get generate to build a data lake or pay to
Yes.
build a data lake. And if that thing is going to take me 6 months to build a data lake or 12 months, like a typical IT project, is I don't have time for that. It's like is we have to get a way that goes quick, that simplifies it, and where marketers can actually grasp it. As I said, this is not our day job. Is not building enterprise data lakes. That's not our day job. Our day job has to be to focus on the campaign, to focus on the leads, to focus on our objectives. So I would say is that like, yep, I love the idea, and then goes back to our original comment on skill set, lack of skill sets and stuff like that. It's like I don't have the people that can do this, like this is, and so how do we do this very quickly, very easily, very seamlessly is going to be pivotal, because as I said, if it's a 12-month project, I just don't think it happens. Your CMOs apparently don't have a tenure of longer than 2 years nowadays. So half of your life can't be spent building the data lake, because then you will be fired before it's done. So
Yeah.
it's my 2 cents on this.
100%. Ashruti, your thoughts here. Just
Yeah. So I would say that I think where marketing adds most value to a business is in terms of predictability. that
Yes.
we should know that this is the audience we target, this is the sales cycle, and this is the right channel, and all of that.
Yeah.
So we know that if we do this and invest that much money, this is the kind of revenue we can achieve. And so that's a long-winded way to say that predictability is improved if you have access to various different data sources and you have built your model based off on that. So I would say, I don't know if technically if Lakehouse is the right solution or anything else, but having this sort of comprehensive view because you have access to various different data sources definitely add value. Like even in like marketing mix modeling, where you are predicting an ROI on media investment, they
Yeah.
integrate third-party data on weather and economy and unemployment and all of that to predict the sales. So I would definitely support that you should have a very robust set of sources, data sources, to be able to predict well on what you should be doing. Of course, time, I totally agree with Piet that that's an issue, that you never get 2 years to show that this is what we built and this is what we are delivering. Definitely not a marketing team. IT teams would get that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Agree.
Yes. Yes. 100%. Thank you, Ashruti. Thank you, Piet. Closing